have anybody here that likes Disney? Big Disney fans here? It's great, yeah. I loved it too, and thank you, Greg, for that introduction. Yeah, we talked about stories today a little bit. Ed mentioned that earlier today, and I'm a bit upset at Donna right now because she's making me follow a comedian and then lunch. So if you guys need any toothpicks to keep your eyes open, I heard they may be having some of those. So later today, because the lunch was, well, pretty filling. So what we're going to do is, I noticed you guys have, you notice on your little packets here on your name tags, you got some Disney trading pins. So those are kind of a touch for today when we peek behind the castle and we look inside there. So does anybody know anything about the Disney pins? Does anybody know about that? Know what the story behind those are? So the Disney pins were created by, they started back when now the president of Walt Disney World was at the Olympics, and he saw, wow, that's a great opportunity, and now it's been a huge selling point for them. So if you take these, if you ever go to Disneyland or Disney World, and you take your pin, they're trading pins, and any cast member that you come across, they usually have some on them on a lanyard or something, and they're required to trade with you if you don't like the one you have, and they'll trade with you and you can find a better one. So huge following for those, but anyway, it's a nice little memento for that. So a little bit more about my story. This is going to be a really high-level discussion. I'm going to try to go through it pretty quickly because we only have an hour. So, because when we did, because my Disney Institute journey has lasted, it's been almost 2 years now, and what led me to Disney was I've been in the system now for 14, 15 years, and I've been spoiled. Some of you have met my manager that was with me for 10 years. Her name's Candace, and she's no longer with me. She decided a few years ago that she wanted to go be a nurse, and I just said, the world doesn't need more nurses, they need more chocolate managers. I don't really understand why you think that's so normal. But I couldn't convince her otherwise, so she went on out the way. Well, so the first 4 years, as many of us do, I was in the store almost every day. I opened up, locked up at night, and loved it. Well, she really spoiled me because she did everything. She actually used to work for Rocky Corporate and ran one of their corporate stores up in Maryland. But she spoiled me, so I didn't have to do a whole lot. Well, then when she was leaving, we transitioned through a few other managers. And toward the last one, I knew Candace was not going to be able to help me anymore. I'm like, sales aren't what they need to be, everything's slipping, I know the standards that I want in the store are not where they need to be, I really need to step back in. What can I do to make that better? Like, what can I do? And so I was like, wow, and I go to Disney quite a bit because, my girls love it, and I went, if I could run my store like a Disney store, that would be really cool. But I don't know how they do that. I just enjoy it as a guest, and I just blindly go and ride Space Mountain and woo, So then I realized it was kind of a desperation moment because I said, I gotta exceed what we're doing now, and I gotta get back in the saddle to do this. So said a prayer, and Disney Institute was the answer, and so it's a 2-year journey that it's taken me now to do this, and it's just been it's amazing, and it's changed a lot of my life. So before I say I have my notes, I'm having to refer to these so I don't skip anything. So there is going to be, there won't be a question and answer at the end of this because we're going to have a roundtable discussion in the next room. I think it's right after this. So we'll have a Disney presentation. So if you have any questions, I can't promise that I can give you an answer, but best I can. If you have any questions on anything. Also, there may or may not be a little test question at the end for you to take notes. There may be some AirPods that are going to be given away with the test question. And I'm not going to make the test question that easy. So it's not one that's going to be all in one section, so you can only listen for a little bit. You kind of have to listen for a lot. But I'll try to maybe give you a little hint to some of the answers. So anyway, so without further ado, we can jump right into this and see how this is working here. All right. So one of the things that led to this whole thing was, because you might go, hey, this is great. Disney's a theme park. They have hotels, they have restaurants. But how does it connect to Rocky Mountain Chocolate Factory? And why did I think that it did? Well, here on Main Street, and you can see Cinderella's castle here. Right here on Main Street, they have the Main Street confectionery. It's always been there. And inside this really cool store, they sell things. And they sell things like apples. And yes, those are Hilliard machines right there. Ian from Chocolate Vision. Don't look if you're here. But they have, or call them. They might need some. But if you look, they have their cooking area here. It's a show kitchen as well. But they have all the apples there. You can actually see the prices on some of them as we move through. They also do chocolates. So they do chocolates, and you can see it's Granny Smith's. There's a nice clean one right there, Hilliard. But you can see they have really cool Rice Krispie treats. And trust me, I go and I steal ideas all the time. When I go in there, I'm like, ooh, I'm gonna make that. When we go back, but really, really neat apples that they have up here. They've decorated for Halloween. Because I took these pictures about 3 weeks ago when I was there. They also have another store that is that's over at Disney Springs, and it's called the Candy Cauldron. Now, when Ed, and it seems like the theme of story has been going on a lot, and Walt loves stories. He loves stories. And that's, as humans, we connect with stories more than anything else. And so the Candy Cauldron, obviously, is a connection with Snow White and the witch that brought the poison apple. In fact, that's their logo at the top, is the poison apple. So when you walk into the store, you feel like you're in like, the witch's shop, if she had one, of where she makes all of her apples. And so the theme of, the details are incredible in here, to the themes of the old pots that look like they would be in a cauldron sort of thing. But there's still the fun things that you see. They actually do make the poison apple as one of their signature apples in there. They make a lot of apples in here. Here's the case. You can see this too. You can see the apples here, and then their case, which is obviously immaculate. With cupcakes, they have cupcakes and all kind of, and fudge. They make it in the pan, so they don't make it like we do. But the great thing about stories is that Disney does, is when you think about theme parks and you think about the love that we all have for Disney, if you've been, and people go back and back time and time again, is that with Disney, if you think about like Space Mountain, Space Mountain is a ride that's, Disney will, Walt Disney World is going to be in there. It was opened in 1971. It's getting ready to go through their 50th anniversary. That ride's been there the whole time, so it's almost 50 years old. The technology was 1960s technology, but there's still an hour, sometimes hour and a half wait for that ride. And part of that is, and the reason is because, number one, there's a nostalgia there, but also because even the queue to get in, Disney has made it a story, and so we connect with those rides, and you know kind of what to expect, and it's different than you go to Universal, and yeah, they have the Harry Potter, which is very popular. Why? Because of the stories. But then you ride the Hulk, or you go to, and our part of the country, it's Carowinds. Yeah, you've got great roller coasters, but no connection, because there's no story behind it. But we'll do Space Mountain, Splash Mountain. Splash Mountain is one of the best water rides there is, but it's because of the story. And if you ride that ride, who's ridden it? Splash Mountain. So Splash Mountain's amazing. You ride it over and over again. It's not just because it's a ride, it's because of the story that it's told along the way, and the attention to detail that they go to. So, how do we do this? When I was in the last class, it's amazing the people that were in the class. So you can see how Disney can teach us something as well. But when you look at the other businesses that are in the classes, we had Department of Defense, Indeed, you have Apple that's been in those classes, Brigham Young University was in this last class that I was in. So education, healthcare, the whole gamut. It's crazy, all the ones that come to Disney for training. So how do they do it? Well, the common frustration that we have right now is we need to develop a clear presence in the marketplace that differentiates us from our competitors and sets us apart as a clear choice for our customers. So organizations must understand that building a competitive advantage in this marketplace depends on the consistency and intentionally delivering a great customer experience. So what Disney Institute, this is like Disney Institute's tagline here. So Disney's consistent business results are driven by strategically focusing on certain business functions and opportunities in which companies often fail to see the value and potential. And that's the key source of what differentiates us. We've learned to be intentional where others may be unintentional. So Disney Institute's chain of excellence, you start with a common purpose, which we're going to talk about later on. So the common purpose is something that all leaders should, and all companies have to have as a common purpose. So then we have the 3 tiers of what the Disney Institute considers like the 3 legs to the stool. And you have leadership excellence, employee engagement, quality service. And when you combine all 3 of those together and master all 3 of those, like Disney has, you get what we all want. We want loyalty, which is your intent to return or your intent to recommend. Make sure I'm not missing any notes here. All right. So we're going to start with leadership excellence. So one of our jobs as leaders is to make our team members' jobs better and easier than possible. And actually, what Disney teaches is we work for our staff. It's not the other way around. Our job is to make their jobs better. I don't know if you guys have heard the analogy of the thermostat and the thermometer before. If you haven't, I'll tell you. So the thermometer measures the temperature in a room, but a thermostat sets it. And as leaders and store owners especially, we don't really have a choice. But when we walk into our stores, we're a thermostat whether we want to be or not. And it's amazing what difference that makes. If we come in a bad mood, you've ruined the day for your team members and your employees, because when you do that, they're taking the lead from you. And it doesn't matter what's going on at home, it doesn't matter. Your job when you come, and a Disney term that we use, when you come on stage with them, that's what you're doing, and you've got to be that positive influence for them. Because the thermostat sets that room and sets the temperature. And unfortunately, now if you're in a great mood and you're positive and that positive energy that Larry talked about earlier, it's absolutely true. You can set a new bar for what your store does, because people won't want to be in negative environments, right? So you can really set that tone. And trust me, I do tell myself that a lot. So we're going to go over what values and visions are. And that was it. So values, the difference between those two, the values are important and lasting beliefs or ideals shared by members of a culture about what is desirable or undesirable. Personal values influence behavior and attitude, and organizational values serve as a broad guidelines in all business interactions. The values we have don't change very often. They can be held on a personal level, organizational, but both systems impact each other, and they have to work together. So, a good example that's happened to me really personally, and with Dave's presentation he gave earlier, it really hit home. I had to fire my manager 4 days ago, right before I came to this. And because his values, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit, his values did not align with the values of my values or the values of my store. And right now, as I was leaving, we're missing $7,500 that in the last 3 weeks. So trying to investigate where that is. So an organization's values often form intentionally by proactive leaders or organically in the presence of all types of leaders. And so what that really means is that you want to intentionally set and form those values. Otherwise, they're going to form on their own from influences from all over, which may not be, and most likely, if they form organically, it's probably not the desired result that you really want. Every leader is telling a story about what he or she values. And one of the things that we noticed a lot in these classes that kind of blew me away was that it is an absolute illusion that people do not know what their leaders are doing. The reality is that they know what leaders are doing all the time. And when we went over this at Disney, I was like, I don't know about all that. That doesn't sound right. Like, I mean, that's what I'm doing. They're not like, the issue is they do. And the illustration was, in this class, we had high-level executives, mid-level leaders, and we had lower leaders. And when we saw those other two talking, and this was mentioned, it was amazing, even at the Department of Defense and at Brigham Young and these other, FDIC even. What they were saying was, there was one that they said, oh, well, our leader's name is Mr. Smith, but we just call him Mr. Who, because his office is there, but he's never there. So we make up stories of where he is. He's probably playing golf, he's probably doing this. Well, the respect for that leader is completely gone. And so when he's there, it's like, oh, he's here. But it doesn't motivate your team very much if they don't think that you're there for them and working for them. And if you have a great manager doing that, then they need to have their presence. But then you need to be there for their manager. And I say this as you, I'm talking to myself too, because this was all coming to me, and I'm like, yes, I know, I do. So it's one of the things that I've recommitted myself to do, is to be there for my manager. So the last 2 years, it's amazing the difference. But yeah, so this is something that they really drilled into us at the last time, which was kind of surprising to me a little bit. So moving right along, Ed talked about the power of story, and this is the story. How many of you here, because this ride is at both Disney World and Disneyland, how many have ridden the Jungle Cruise? So the Jungle Cruise was originally a ride that Walt created, and Walt absolutely loved animals, and he loved the education about animals. So when he did the Jungle Cruise, and actually the Jungle Cruise has changed from when Walt did back in its day. However, one thing that Walt was very definitive on was the length of the ride. The ride had to be 7 minutes long. So there's a guy named Dick Nunes who was one of Walt's kind of partners and early managers at Disneyland, and he was running this ride along with a few others. And Walt loved to walk the park. He'd walk the park, quite a bit. And so one day he comes up to Dick and he's like, "All right, Dick, I want to ride the ride." He said, "Oh, great." So he gets on the ride. He comes off. He says, "Dick, I need to talk to you about something." He goes, "Yeah, boss, what's up?" He said, "That was 5 minutes and 16 seconds. How long is it supposed to be?" He said, 7 minutes. He said, "Why'd you cut it?" He said, "Look at this line. The line's out the door." He said, "If we speed it up, we can get through people going. We can get them through much faster." And Walt said, "People will wait for the 7-minute ride, but they will not wait for the 5 minute and 16-second ride." And he said, "My plan for this ride is to give them an experience. If you're rushing through that, they will never get the experience that I want them to have." So Dick understood this, and I guess when Walt Disney's telling you this, you're going to get it too. So Walt loved to walk the park, right? So he said, "Yes, sir. I'm gonna get it fixed right away." He said, "All right, just make sure." So Walt left. So the next day, Dick goes into training, and he knows Walt's not going to be the next day. He's going to give him a little time. So the next week, he's ready. He's got everything set. And so he looks and he's like, "All right, Walt's going to be in the park today. This is Wednesday. He's always in the park on Wednesday." There's Walt, and there he goes. So we did this the next day. He saw Walt walk by. So 3 weeks, Walt comes back, and he says, "All right, I'm ready to ride again." "Oh, yes, sir, we're ready for you." So he gets down, he rides the ride, 7 minutes, it's perfect. He said, "Dick, how many boats you got?" He said, "Well, sir, we got 7 boats, because I guess I'm taking 6 more rides." Oh. So he rode every boat with every driver and every captain that they had to make sure that experience was right for every single guest. When he came off the 7th boat, he came and he gave Dick a thumbs up. No words, just a thumbs up. So the power of story was huge for Disney then, it's huge for Disney now, and they continue to tell the story over and over. It's the same thing that we can do for the experience that we want to give our guests when they come in. If you shortcut things, if you're not doing the right things, if we don't cook during the times when the store's fulfilled and full, then we're not giving them that experience. We cook during the middle of the night because it's easier, they're not getting that experience either. So, all right, if you could, everybody raise your hand here if you think you personally have integrity, besides Donna. Okay, now everyone raise your hand if you think everyone you work with in your entire organization has integrity. Yeah, not a whole lot of hands. A lot less. So, the problem with that is that we judge ourselves based on our intentions, but others will judge us by our behaviors. Because I guarantee you, if you went to your organizations and you asked them that same question, do all of you think, do you have integrity? I bet all of them are going to raise their hand, because intentionally they feel like they do. But unfortunately, their behaviors and actions speak otherwise. And it definitely does on our end as leaders as well. And they see that. So our behaviors tell a story of what we value. and what we do, regardless of our intentions. A leader's job is to establish those values, which is done through observable actions, not just words or good intentions. When it comes to others, perception is reality. Here is a list of some of the, now you don't need to write all these down, there's a lot of them. But one of the things, if you haven't done it, and it was an exercise that I had to do for my store, you need to establish what your values are in your store or your company. These are a sample of some of the values that Disney gave. This is not even the whole list that they gave. We're going to go over what Disney actually chose from this list in just a minute. So, in fact, we're going to start right now. So, Disney's values are respect, which is we treat each other with care and consideration. Openness, we share information freely. We act in a manner consistent with our words and beliefs, which is the integrity. Courage, we pursue our beliefs with strength and perseverance. Honesty, we deal with each other in a sincere and straightforward manner. Diversity, we seek, value, and respect the differences among our fellow cast members. Balance, we strive for stability and vitality in our personal and professional lives. And later on, if you haven't done values before, feel free. We can go back to that. You can take a picture of that list. I can provide you one with much more, so you can kind of figure out which ones they are. There's another exercise that I don't give a list, but we can do that on that one too. So now we're going to define what the vision is, and so what we need is a vision statement. So the vision, though, is an ambitious view of the future that everyone in the organization can believe in, and it promises a future that is better than what exists now. Now, this vision is going to evolve. But it must remain realistic, specific, relevant to all involved, and must create an environment for organizational change without sacrificing the values that we've established. So your vision statement is something that your employees, all of them, should know. Now, is it something that they need to memorize? No. But in your training, you need to go over what your values are and also what your vision statement is. So Disney's vision statement. We want to be the most admired company in the world, admired for the quality of our product, the integrity of our people, and the way in which we behave as citizens of the world. This is Bob Iger. So it changes. This vision statement has changed from CEO to CEO. I had an employee one time that said, Jay, you know what? I've been shooting arrows, but I just don't know what the target is for you. I don't know what our company's target is. And so I realized that a vision statement was something that we really had to create, and we did. Now, the other thing that Disney does is the leaders have their basics. So I don't have, there's a sheet that you don't have in your packet. In fact, before we go on, let's look at your packets that are there. Grab this one. So you have this nice gift that has all these cool Disney quotes on there. We have some notes. We are still in, so here's some note-taking paper. Right now we're still in the leadership excellence part of it. As we go forward, there will be employee engagement, and then there will be quality service. Obviously, really quickly with all that. There's also a case study in here for Haagen-Dazs you will use later that Disney partnered with them on. We're going to go over the laminated stuff, except for the Rocky Mountain Chocolate Factory. That was self-explanatory. The other ones we will go over later, but I just wanted to go all over that. There is Disney Leader Basics, however, that is not included in that, but I will get it out to you if you guys want it. I'll get it to Donna later on. But we're going to go over what those Disney Leader Basics are, and these are the leadership, the basics that every leader in the Disney organization, Disney World, Disneyland, knows on a daily basis, and this is how they. And this is just kind of the headlines of them. I lead with a positive attitude and demonstrate commitment to cast members. So that's the headline. Now we get to the meat. It means that I foster a positive and safe work environment. I take a sincere interest in cast members and make them feel included and valued. I treat cast with the same courtesy that we treat our guests. Actively listen to the cast and quickly follow up on their issues. Motivate and engage cast members through inspirational leadership and storytelling. Move to the second one. I know and manage my operation and teach it to cast members. I model and teach the 4 keys basics, which we will go over in just a little bit, to cast members. I know when to make decisions and when to empower the cast. I transfer knowledge and skills to the cast members. Monitor, measure, and make balanced financial decisions to ensure an efficient operation. I'm available, visible, to assist in the operation as needed, remove barriers, and identify improvements daily in the operation. And one of the ways they do that is every leader has a leader walk they do, and they walk their area every morning in the park to make sure that it is show ready. And we'll talk about show ready a little bit later, but it means there's no trash. They look up, is there some paint needed? Everything should look spotless for every guest that come in, because it's important that they have a great guest experience. Because a lot of times, when you go to Disney, you know how expensive it is. A lot of times this is the first time they're ever gonna go, and maybe the last time. They've saved a lot of money to do it. The last thing here is I recognize and hold cast members accountable for delivering the 4 keys basics, which we're gonna go. So I reinforce how cast members' actions make a difference to guests, recognize and appreciate improvement and good performance, consistently and fairly communicate expectations and uphold their standards, and explain the whys behind decisions. And I know we talked a little bit earlier, Larry had to think about millennials. Millennials today, especially this last one, explain the whys behind decisions. Disney was talking about how they've overcome some of the difficulties. The old way of, it's because I said so, and it's my way of the highway doesn't work with millennials. They want to know why. And if you explain to them why, they're good to go. But you better have a good explanation as to why. And they also want to see you model that behavior. So now we're moving on to the next section, employee engagement. So this is best summed up as, why can't I get my employees just to do what I tell them to do? I've asked them so many times to order guitar, and I've asked them, why can't they just make a caramel when I ask them to make it? Why does it have to be so difficult? I mean, spear and apples is not that big of a deal. So we all go through this, but why it's so difficult. And Disney says it is possible to create a workforce that demonstrates desired behaviors on a consistent basis. And obviously this one is probably the most popular of the Disney courses at Disney Institute. So I know you guys just got back from lunch and you're probably comatose, so I want you to, everybody stand up, we're gonna do a little exercise really quickly. It's short, I promise. So the person, and I'm up here just so I can see everybody better. So I need everybody to get a partner, just someone next to you. Hopefully there's someone next to you. You're gonna face each other. So everyone on this side, we're gonna do 2 exercises really quickly. I'll only take 1 minute. The person on this side of the room, I want you to greet the other person and greet them as if, you know what? I got something else to do. This is great, but I got something else to do. On the other side, before you do that, after you're done that exercise, I want the person on this side to greet the other person, but it's a long lost friend you hadn't seen in a long time, and you have it, and you're so excited to see them. Ready? And go. But I gotta go. I told you. But you know what really bothers me? Oh my God. Some people tell me over the phone. Yeah. Good?
And another thing that bothers me
one of the things you should have noticed is a marked difference
So what do you want?
on how that felt
5 minutes
from the first one to the second one. And the issue that we get is a lot of times our guests that come in, you can sit down now. You have to stay in the rest of the presentation. A lot of times what happens is our guests that come in, if you're not there enforcing those values, they get the first version. Because what do we have that our employees love to take out and use quite a bit, even when the boss is away? They're going to text on it, they're going to do whatever. Even though you've told them they can't have it, you've got that, you've got talking amongst themselves, talking about what they did last night, the date they've got coming up this weekend, inappropriate conversations when they're out in the store, right? What you want to have interactions with, and this is what Disney does, is you want to have the interactions that are just the opposite. The last one that you had, that it was a long-lost best friend. And so one of my team members right now, actually, she came and she said, I've been to Disney so many times, and I can't believe it. But every time I go, I've not seen a single cast member that isn't smiling and happy to see me. And I'm like, yeah. And she goes, yeah, but I haven't been like one time. I've been like 20 times, and I don't understand how every one I see, it's consistent. And she goes, do you know how they do that? And I go, I do. And so she's like, well, how? And I go, I'm not telling you every secret. But we're gonna go over here. So this is, and again, this is high level, but this is kind of how they do that. So because your culture, I gotta advance. Because your culture is defined how people behave, the ideal employees are those who most closely align with your desired behaviors and values. And James Heskett of the Culture Cycle, who wrote that book, he said, an organization's culture is complex. It's not hard to describe. It's often explained as being the way we do things around here and what goes and what doesn't. Who here completely, besides Donna, who loves what they do? When you go in the store, who loves what they do? Right? And if you don't, how in the world do you expect your employees to? If you don't show that, if you're not the thermostat when you come in and you go, okay, I love this thing, and I gotta get behind it and show that excitement when you come in, how do you expect them to do? And if you aren't intentional about your culture, you're gonna have an organic one, just like the organic values, you're gonna have an organic culture, which is not what you want. Because you have a culture now, whether you know it or not. Because anytime 2 or 3 people are together, there's a culture there. Right? So you have one, but the way Disney differentiates themselves is because they are deliberate about the culture they want to have. And you have lasting people. Disney has one of the highest retention rates for employees in the industry, bar none. So we're going to talk a little about culture right now. So there's 4 elements of culture by design per Disney, right? So you have your shared values, which we talked about the values. So what you want is you want your values to align with your employees' values. You have traits and behaviors. So the behaviors that you really want to see in your store, whether they're smiling, whether they're someone who works hard, what are those behaviors that you require out of an employee? You want to set those to figure out what they are, because the more you know and you set them, you're not guessing when you go to hire people. Your heritage and traditions. So Disney obviously has a lot of heritage and traditions, going back to Walt and the movies they've done and all the iconology with Mickey. They have a lot of that, and it's especially when you go backstage at Disney World, which I've had the privilege of doing many times, it's still there. And because they want their team members to realize, and their cast members to realize how important that is. We have that too. And unfortunately, Frank's not here right now, but we have that in Frank and the story and the legacy that Frank has set forth and continues in it even now. Language and symbols. Disney has a lot of their own language. So you have cast member instead of employee. You have on stage and backstage. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later when we get to quality service standards. But when on stage is basically where our guest is. Backstage is what you don't want your guest to see. You have a guest instead of a customer. You have a hostess instead of a server. You have the Disney point. Somebody know what the Disney point is? So the Disney point is use 2 fingers. In Disney World, you'll never see anybody use 1 finger. And so after this was drilled in my head, now I do 2 fingers and I don't even think about it. But 1 finger is very offensive in certain cultures. And so they use 2 or a whole-handed point. You also have attractions instead of rides or shows. And then you have vacation planners instead of ticket takers. Or ticket sellers, rather. And the reason for that is there was a woman, originally, there was at Disneyland, there was a really long line, and there was 4 other ticket booths that were open. And Walt goes, and he loves to walk the park, right? So he goes, what in the world is this line so long? So he goes and says, hey, there's 4 other places here you could go. Why are you staying in this one? Oh, well, Leslie's at the front of this one. Okay, well, Betty Sue is over here. You know what? They said, oh, no. When we come, you guys have changed things, you've added things. She knows all of the show times, and she's going to plan our vacation for us. So that's why we're all standing here. So Walt made her head of training for all of them, and now they're vacation planners because of that. So it's a little thing that happened. The other one that I don't have up here is the Disney Scoop. And the Disney Scoop is one of those things that can get kind of addictive a little bit. But basically, every employee or cast member will walk through the park. If they see trash, they're just going to scoop down, grab that, pick it up. That's why you don't see many, because every cleanliness of the store, cleanliness of the parks, cleanliness of the hotels, restaurants, is everyone's responsibility. complete your overall service program, your efforts will collapse if your managers do not reinforce those right behaviors. And all layers of leadership must support that culture that you have established and reinforce those right behaviors. You need to catch somebody doing something right. Catch them doing something right, and when you catch them doing right, reinforce that. Now, you got to squash the bad behaviors too, but you got to reinforce the right behaviors, and it has to come from all levels of leadership. You can't have an assistant manager that goes, doesn't matter. Nope, can't have that. If you want this to work, everyone has to have buy-in. And the other thing is, you don't just tell people how they contribute, you have to show them how they contribute by immersing them in the customer experience. So the reason the carousel is here, one time at Disney, there's an artist not too long ago, and the Central Shops is where they take all of the carousels. Now the carousel, how many of you have seen the carousel at Disney World? It's right behind the castle, right when you walk through the castle, around the castle, it's right there. And I think now it's called Prince Charming's Regal Carousel. Its name changed a little bit. It was built in 1917, and it has 72 wooden horses, and they're all original, and that's why they wanted this one, because it was one of the original old-time ones, and all of them are made of maple. Well, they go painstakingly to make sure these things look like they originally did back in 1917. So they take them back to Central Shops, and there's always one or two in the shop that they rotate out. So one of the painters, she painted, and all she did was she painted these, and it takes weeks to restore one of these just from the wear and tear of kids getting on. And so and she'd been there a few years, and she just said, her boss noticed it, you're not looking like you're happy. What's wrong? She said, well, it's just I paint all day, and I don't feel the love, And he said, you know what? I got an idea. Meet me tomorrow at the park. Tomorrow morning we'll go to the park. 9 o'clock. She said, okay. They meet in front of Magic Kingdom. He walks her back through the castle to the carousel. He said, I want you to just stand here for a minute. She did, and what she saw was the kids rushing to this and going crazy over how beautiful these horses were. He also had the Disney files who were like, well, this thing was built in 1917, that's 72 wooden horses, and it also, the last time they found it was in New Jersey, and blah, blah, back in the late 60s, they found it and had to have it. And she was like, wow. She really saw that the work that she did impacted lives and brought happiness to all of those kids and all those people that were affected by this ride. And sometimes we have to do that. We have to do that with our own staff. The extent to which you genuinely care for your people is the extent to which they will care for your customers and each other. A good leader works for their employees, not the other way around. Lewis Carroll said, one of the deep secrets of life is that all that is really worth doing is what we do for others. So now we move on to hiring. So we'll go to hiring first. So hiring, you should hire for attitude, not for skills, because we can teach the skills, but hiring for those attitudes and the values is much more important. And right now in this economy, everything's good, the unemployment's low, it's really hard to find these people because they've been scooped up. But you can still do it. And how does your ad look? If you're on Indeed, I had to relook at my ad big time. It should include some elements of your culture and your values. So sometimes when they look at that, they can discount themselves and go disqualify and say, you know what, this job's not for me. I'm not that happy. I'm not. So I'll give you a little hint. My Indeed ad, I went to the Disney website and I looked at one of their ads and I cut and pasted and then morphed it to what I needed. So, but still, with my values, some of our culture, which included Frank, I gave history of the company. That's what Disney does. So I talked about the store opening in Durango so that they would know a little bit of history about the company. And one of the things I ask them is I go, tell me about the company, because I want to know whether they've read the ad or not. The other thing that is very important is you give out plenty of ARE, a lot of R. So that's your acknowledgement, your recognition, your respect, and encouragement. So right now, I want you to all do me a huge favor. You willing to do that? Can you help me out on something? Is that a yes?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. All right, so I have one of my team members here. She's also my sister, but Melissa. She's been with us for about 10 years. Could you guys do me a huge favor? Turn to Melissa and say, thank you for everything you've done for the last 10 years. Could you do that?
Thank you, Melissa. Long 12 years.
My pleasure.
Just like the Chick-fil-A answer, right? Thank you guys so much. Now I've given her so much R I don't need to for a while, right? You really helped me out. So one of the other things that they do is these limited edition cast pins is really cool. And one of the things that they would do is it doesn't cost very much for the company. And they would give these out because they're limited edition, cast only things. And it was amazing what they meant to cast members who said, well, if I do this extra training, I'm not getting paid anymore for it, I can get this pin. And you wouldn't believe the motivation that that would cause for people. I've talked to cast members and they're like, oh, I got that pin. And I'm like, really? And they're like, yeah. And they're proud of it. I'm like, I want to see it. So it's really cool. And there's things that we can do. In fact, one of the things that I do for our team members is whenever I'm on a Disney trip, I will actually say, all right, if you guys don't call out and you don't get written up for anything, I'm not asking you to do anything out of the ordinary. Tell me what your favorite character is, and I'm gonna bring you out your pin. And we had some that had their lanyard and they wanted them filled up. So it was something that was a real motivation for them. So I just kind of used the pins too. So we're gonna move on to quality service now. So quality service is the last of the three legs, and I told you this is a very, a high level thing. But exceptional service is achievable for every organization because exceptional service is architected for systems and processes that you control. Now we're going to talk about common purpose. A common purpose is the essential foundation on which all other service decisions can be developed. A common purpose is a succinct explanation of what you want customer experience to be on an emotional level. Every organization must have a common purpose. But a lot of times it's overlooked. So, what's an example of a common purpose? We're going to show you Apple's. Apple's common purpose is to make a contribution to the world by making tools for the mind that advance humankind. This purpose assures that Apple is constantly aiming for the highest bar, no exceptions. Disney's is we create happiness, providing the finest entertainment for people of all ages everywhere. Now, if you ask cast members what's your common purpose, they're probably going to say we create happiness. The important thing is that every one of our employees should know what our common purpose is. Every one of them should know that. Because they need to know why they're coming to work every day, because it's not for a paycheck. Disney, it's because we create happiness. And the reason they're so happy all the time is because they know their job is to make other people happy, and when you make other people happy, it makes you happy. And that's why they're like, I get to make somebody happy today. And not only is it an opportunity, but I'm required to do it too. So ours, I'm wearing our button right now. So our common purpose, and all my team members wear this button. It says, did you live today? Well, live means leave it better. So for us, our common purpose is we leave the customer better than when they came in the store. And not only that, we leave everywhere we go better because we were there. Whether it's doing a Disney scoop and picking up trash at Walmart, wherever, because it actually becomes addictive. And the other thing is, the reason I make them wear it, and I make them wear the button, is because customers are going to ask, they're going to say, what does that mean? Well, as soon as they go, basically it kind of means I'm supposed to make your day. Well, if you have a bad attitude, they're going to say, well, you just failed that one. Right? So it's a reminder to them as why they come to work every day. So then we have quality standards. And we're going to get to one of your sheets. An in-depth analysis of purpose, customer, and economics that can help develop clearly defined quality standards. So we're going to go as to what that means exactly. Quality standards are the operating priorities that guide the consistency of your customer experience. Now, if you want to, you can follow along. There is a laminated sheet that looks like this. It says the 4 keys basics. I referenced it back when I went over the leader basics, the 4 keys. The most common thing about Disney cast members, if you're going to say, what do they know? It's the 4 keys. You can ask any cast member from Bob Iger, the CEO, all the way down to the custodial, to the people that clean the rooms. What are the 4 keys? And they're going to be able to tell you these 4 keys. Safety, courtesy, show, efficiency. They're going to go off, they're going to rattle them off. They know they know what they mean because they're reinforced constantly. So we're going to go over those. So just making sure I'm not forgetting anything. So the first one we have is safety. So if we look at this, I practice safe behaviors in everything I do. I take action to always put safety first. I speak up to ensure the safety of others. Pretty simple. Safety is one that we all should do. Courtesy. I project a positive image and energy. I am courteous and respectful to all guests of all ages. I go above and beyond to exceed guest expectations. Disney also has a tool to judge guest expectations, which unfortunately I don't have time to share with you, but it's really cool. So, moving right along. Show. Now, show is the one where Disney really excels. I stay in character and perform my role in the show. I ensure my area is show ready at all times. So I talk about this a lot in the store. Our closers are to make sure our store is show ready for the morning, which means the floor should look like you're opening a curtain when the openers come in. Everything should be stocked, everything should be cleaned. It should look like that. An experience is remembered most when it engages all the senses, and you should control every aspect of what your guest experiences. So when you come in, you just need to remember, this is like a stage, and that's what Disney has for every store that they have, every hotel, they're on stage. And when you're on stage, you control, as the director of that show, everything that they're going to experience. So the music they're listening to, could it be offensive? The temperature of the air, what they smell, what they see, is it clean? Are the people being courteous? Are they playing their role, as how Disney refers to it? You control all that. And that's why I stay in character and perform my role in the show. And as a leader, you enforce that. Efficiency. Efficiency is I perform my role efficiently so guests get the most out of their visits. And sometimes the best way to deal with efficiencies is that it's a great opportunity right now for all you guys to share with one another. Sometimes, because we got a lot of wisdom in this room for doing stores and performing stores and efficiency. Some of you guys do efficiency better than others, and you may not just know it. And so when I was going through that struggle a few years ago, I realized that's one of my weaknesses, is there's some things I'm not efficient about. Well, I had my friend Gail from Minneapolis, who's very efficient on several things. So she helped me with that efficiency. And if you want to know any of that, her number is, she's here, but amazing operator, and it's great to team up. So having a business buddy, which is something that Donna talked about, is an amazing opportunity to really help out, to really help you to get the most efficient thing that you can get out of it. And finally, we go to service failures. So service failures, recover quickly from service failures and empower your employees to do the same. So one of the things Disney recommends, get with your frontline team members and ask, what are some of the things, especially if you're not one of them, what are some of the things where we fail on service? Things that go wrong. People coming back, complaints from our guests, what are things that we fail on? And then what you need to do with the values, your vision statement, your common purpose, those things, and along with whatever your 4 keys are, and that's the other one. I don't have a big list of the 4 keys that you can choose from, but there are. I do have a list of those instead of using the Disney ones. Choosing those and figuring out what the right solution is to every single one of those issues, because quite frankly, the guest, he doesn't care about your org chart. He just wants the solution to his problem. So you need to go through whatever it is and give an answer to what their correct response is and empower them to do that. Whether it's like with Donna's story, give them so much every month that they can give away to a customer. That's an amazing thing. So one of the stories that I told Donna the other day that's pretty cool that happened at a hotel. So one of the things, if you've ever called to Disney, one of the things they do is they ask if you're celebrating a special occasion. They'll say, okay, is it a wedding, or is it a birthday, is it an anniversary? And so you can put that on there, and so then they want to make sure that they acknowledge that when you come in. So a couple comes in to check in the hotel, and the woman's checking them in, and she looks down and she said, oh my gosh, congratulations on your engagement. He looks up and said, I haven't asked her yet. You can imagine how that made everybody feel, right? I mean, the girlfriend luckily just went, ooh, and looked around and went, oh, I didn't hear that. I'm going to just act like I didn't hear that. The front desk hostess was very flustered, and she's like, okay, let me just get you checked in, let's figure out what's going on. And she immediately checked them in, got them room, went back to her shift lead, and said, oh my God, you're not gonna believe just what happened. I said this is, very nervous about this whole thing, I don't know what to do. He said, well, we'll just have to wait and see. Maybe everything's okay. So, about 15, 20 minutes later, the girlfriend comes down to the front desk, and she says, yeah, you checked us in a little bit? She said, yes, ma'am, I know I did. I'm really sorry. And she said, well, I just want to let you know that my boyfriend, he just wants to leave. He wants to go home.
Oh, no.
He said, he's not telling me why. And of course, I acted like I didn't hear anything, but he just wants to go home. He's alone in the room right now. I told him I was going to take a walk and explore the beautiful hotel. But if you can call him right now, that would be great, and try to work something out. She says, yes, ma'am, I'll do that. She goes back to her shift lead and said, this is what happened. And the shift lead, the manager, she said, I'm going to take care of this. She calls up and says, hey, I'm really sorry, I heard about what happened. Is there anything I can do? He said, no, there's nothing. I'm so annoyed that you guys did that now I don't have a surprise anymore. She's acting like she didn't hear it, but I don't know whether she really did or not. I just want to leave. He said, what do you have planned? You haven't asked her yet. Do you have any plans? Well, not really. I was just going to, go and ask her in front of the castle at some point. How about this? Just give me a chance to make this right. Give me until tonight. Come back here at 7 o'clock tonight. Give me until then to work this out for you. And if you still want to leave after I tell you the plan that I can come up with, we'll comp your room. But right now, I want to give you some fast passes, go enjoy the parks, have fun. And he said, okay. So she's frantic on the phone. So if you've ever been to Disney World, they have, at the castle, they have Cinderella's Royal Table, which is actually a restaurant inside the castle, and it's really, really cool. And they have 2 or 3 tables that are considered their engagement tables, and those are up against the window, or special occasion tables. And when the fireworks go off, they're right there. So she called me, she says, look, I need one of the engagement tables. I gotta have it for tomorrow night. And he goes, well, we're fully booked. It's like, yeah, but do you have engagements at all those tables? I need to have one. He goes, yeah, it's gonna cost you. She goes, I don't really care, just build a hotel. It's not a problem. This is what happened. And he goes, yep, you need one. So, that all works out. I said, yeah, I need your guy, I need you guys to watch them, because if she says yes, you need to call me back, because when she does, I got a bunch of stuff we're gonna put in their room.
Oh,
Okay, great.
if she says
So, tells the plan, and he's like, well, that sounds pretty cool.
yes, she better not.
When she said the engagement table, she also said I needed 8:15 because the fireworks start at 9. So what they planned is right before the fireworks came off and the first pop was going to go, because Disney times all this well, the waiter comes with the ring right when the fireworks come off, right there in the window. So truly a magical moment. So they did all this. So the next day, the shift lead's down there going, oh, have they come back? Have they said anything? Have they been back stuff? Nope, I haven't heard anything. Next day, oh my gosh, have we heard anything from them? Are they still here? Yep, they're still checked in. Okay. So 3 or 4 days later, when their vacation was going to end, they come up to the desk and seek that manager out right at the end. And they say, we just want to tell you what an amazing experience you made this. We were ready to leave, but now we've decided that we want to get married here. And so not only do we want to get married here, but right now our plan is to come back every year on our anniversary. So you can see how, kind of the moral of the story is, when you look at it, it was a huge, yes, a mistake was made, and it was a huge gamble for Disney to go to comp them a dinner at a sold-out restaurant and huge expenses, and we're even going to comp their room if they didn't like it, and we're with absolutely zero assurances that there would be any financial return. In fact, all through the Disney stuff, they never talk about profit or money or anything. It's all about, because they know, and if we know Disney, it's not like Disney is not a for-profit company. They make plenty. But it's because of the way they do this that brings them. That's a side effect because of how well they do everything. So in that regard, it really would, we always see the service recovery sometimes not that important, and we think, yeah, if someone, they don't like their apple, it's not my fault they chose the wrong apple. I'm not going to give them a refund on that. I'm not going to give them a free one. You don't know what that could lead to. And so it's little, and yes, we don't have hotels, and we don't have restaurants that we can do what they did. But we can start small because those impacts could be amazing. So one of my favorite quotes from Walt Disney is short. It's everything speaks. And what that means is every time you go anywhere, when you go through the parks, everything speaks to the way cast members interact to you, to even if you go to the different lands of Disney World, the cement, the floor changes as you go from land to land. Your feet know it, because everything speaks. If you see a piece of trash that's out of place, if you see a light bulb that's broken, if you see any of those, it speaks to you, I don't really care. All the details that you think, no one's gonna notice. It gets noticed. It's one of those things, the reason they call guests is because if you want to have guests over to your house, you're going to probably clean up, right? I mean, I don't all the time, but we probably should, right? But we want to make it as clean as possible, and that's what Disney feels like they're guests, so they want to have an amazing experience for them and make it clean and make it great. So there's a little story that went, President Kennedy obviously went up to this guy. He was laying bricks, and he said, "Sir, you're doing a great job. You're doing a great job on laying these bricks." He turned to him and he said, "Mr. President, I'm not laying bricks. I'm building a cathedral." And we do this every day. I had this exact experience with a bus driver at the Charlotte Airport. The way we do it is the employees, we have to park out in the lot, and we ride a bus. We get on our employee lot, we come in. And so one time we were unloading some equipment, and I was talking to one of the bus drivers. I said, "How do you like your job?" And he said, "It's nothing but driving a bus around in circles." So I thought about it a minute. I says, "You don't like it?" He goes, "No, just driving a bus in circles. This is what it is." And I said, "Actually, you know what? You make dreams come true." He looked at me like, "What are you talking about?" I said, "You make dreams come true." He said, "I drive around in a circle." And I go, "No, you don't. You may feel that way, but that's not what you do." Who's on your bus? Every pilot, every worker, every flight attendant, every worker that works in this airport that makes it run is on your bus. Without you doing that, the little girl that is up there to go on a trip to Disney World for the first time that she's dreamed about for years is going to be able to go because you drove around in circles. You're making her dream come true. And he just went, "I never thought about it like that." So it's an opportunity for all of us to think in our stores, what dreams do we make come true? Because we do, by what we do every single day. The happiness that we see. Those on Valentine's Day, when we sell those boxes, those heart boxes, the difference that we make in people's lives later on because of that, we'll never see, but we have to know that they exist. And finally, putting it into practice. You have this card in there, so we're going to go over it really quickly, and this is how we're going to end. It's something you should share with your employees. But number one, be happy. Make eye contact and smile. Number two, be like Sneezy. Greet and welcome each and every guest. Spread the spirit of hospitality because it's contagious. Number three, don't be bashful. Seek out the guest contact. Number four, be like Doc. Provide immediate service recovery. And that means you have to empower your employees to do that. 5, don't be grumpy. Always display appropriate body language at all times. 6, be like Sleepy. Create dreams and preserve the magical guest experience. And 7, don't be dopey. Thank each and every guest. And with that, that was just a look behind the magic.